Hey, my friends, Leo Babauta from Zen Habits here. So glad to be here with you. Today, I'm going to share with you what I consider the secret sauce of personal growth, personal development, of changing your life, hitting your goals. So, whatever it is that you're shooting for, what is what is the secret sauce underlying it? And this is not something necessarily that's going to be the first time you've ever heard of this, so it's not a huge secret, but I believe that most people either haven't heard of it or don't think about it or ignore it or forget about it. So this will be a reminder for some of you, but also I think it's just under talked about. So what is that secret sauce that leads to the changes we really want in our lives? And that secret sauce is how we see ourselves in this particular area that we're trying to change. I believe that there's a way we see ourselves in all areas of life. Maybe you think you're amazing at, let's say the work that you do, but when you come home and you want to change your health habits, maybe you think, I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. It feels terrible. I don't know what I feel like I'm totally floundering or I feel lost. So in the area of fitness and health, maybe you see yourself in a certain way. And that way you see yourself may have been formed a long time ago. And so as long as you hold that view of yourself, it will be really hard to make these changes. So if you're like, I'm not someone who likes to work out, then you're not likely to enjoy it. You're not going to have fun with it. You're not going to explore it. You're not going to stick with it for very long. And you will start to confirm that view of yourself. Now, here's the thing. That view that you have of yourself is usually hidden from even you. You don't even realize how you're viewing yourself. It's like this hidden layer that's always there, that is operating on how we see things, how we feel, our actions, and yet it's hidden and it's always there, and it has an effect on everything that we do. So if it has that effect and we can't see it, then what are we going to do about it? Well, luckily, this is what this video is about, is we're going to shine a light on this so that you have more awareness, so that you can take a look at it, and then you can actually do something about it. And I'll tell you, if you do something about it, it's transformative. So I'm going to give you a few examples in my life so that you can see what I'm talking about. And I think it's going to become more real for you when you see these examples. And then I'm going to share with you some tips for actually working with it in your life. So let's rewind the tape all the way back to the year 2005. I was living in Guam, which is where I'm from, my home island. I was a father. My sixth kid was on her way to be born, and I was married. And my life was very different. I was a smoker. I was sedentary. I procrastinated. I was deeply in debt. I had a lot of clutter. I was overweight. I couldn't stick to an exercise program. I was comforted myself with junk food, and the list goes on and on and on. So I started my journey of transformation in that year. And the way that I did it was around quitting smoking. Not the place I'd recommend for most people, but for me, that's where I started. And I had failed a bunch of times before. And the reason was because I didn't know this at the time. I learned this through my exploration, but I when I was stressed, when I was mad at somebody, when I was stressed and overwhelmed about work, when I got into an argument with someone, when I was stressed about my life being in, shambles, when I was stressed, I turned to cigarettes to cope. That was my coping mechanism. And the view that I had that I couldn't see was that I can't cope without cigarettes. Now, you can replace that, by the way, in your life with whatever it is that you use for coping with stress. So maybe for you it's cigarettes, but it could be alcohol. It could, I can't cope without a glass of wine or a cocktail. It could be other drugs, marijuana, whatever drugs you have. It could be, you know, um, Xanax or whatever people use to cope with things. It could be TV. It could be social media. It could be internet. It could be porn. It could be what else? Food, comfort foods. Um, work for some people. There's a lot of different things that we use to cope with stress. But whatever it is for you, we have a view that we can't cope with that stress and overwhelm, with that frustration, with all the crap going on in our lives if we don't have this. So it's a view of ourselves as like not very strong, courageous, or resilient. Now, when I started to quit, I actually started to change that view. I started to believe, actually, I think I can deal with this stress. And I did it with meditation. I started meditating. I did it with running. I started running. I did it with, breathing and massaging my tense shoulders. So a few different ways I tried, but whatever the way wasn't as important as the idea that I could actually do this. And when I started doing it, I actually proved this new view of myself. And through that, I believe that that's the secret sauce of how I was able to quit. Now, it's not the only thing. I had a number of other like tricks and tips, which I have a video on quitting smoking, so you can go watch that. But I believe that that was the secret sauce. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I can now see that. And then I figured that out and started applying it to some of the other things. Meditation was actually another one. When I started meditating, I was like, I'm not a meditator. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to do. It's not my thing. And when I started doing it, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. So I felt totally lost and shaky about it. And just like, this is really not me. But I started to shift that because I started to see that meditation was helping me to bring awareness to the urges of smoking. It was giving me a little bit more sense of spaciousness and peace, just a little bit. And I survived meditating. I could do it. And so I started to be like, well, maybe I'm a beginner meditator, but I could meditate. I started to see myself slowly as a meditator. And over the years, I've proven that I am a meditator. Now, how I see myself as a meditator has also shifted over the years in different ways, but at the base level, I see myself as a meditator and not a non-meditator. That wasn't true when I started. Same thing happened with running. I started running. I couldn't do it. It's like, this is hard. It's too hard for me. I'd rather, not do it. And then I started seeing myself by running over and over again. I started seeing myself as a runner. And when I ran my first 5K, which was only like a month into it, month and a half, 2 months into it. Actually about a month and a half into it. I ran my first 5K, 3.1 miles, not the longest thing, but I did it. And that race proved to me I am a runner. And for some reason, I decided I'm going to go after a marathon a year from now. Now, that was a bit fast. I think I probably should have waited another year after that. So 2 or 3 years into it, then run the marathon. But, you can't tell that 2005 Leo what to do. So he was like, I'm doing a marathon because all of a sudden I started seeing myself as a runner. Now, the first marathon was super hard. I didn't see myself as a marathoner, but eventually I did, and I ran a couple more, and even an ultra marathon after expanding my view of myself. And I started doing this over and over and over again as a writer and a blogger, as a podcaster and a YouTuber, as a father, who didn't spank his kids or yell at his kids. A lot of different ways I've shifted how I view myself. And that shift in view came from an initial shift in action and intention, but also came through repeated just believing that of myself, telling myself that this was true, and then actually proving it. So those are some examples. I believe that, the reason why I failed at all of these things in the past, I couldn't stay with exercise. The reason why I failed was because I believed I couldn't change. That wasn't who I was. I'll give you a quick example showing that with changing my diet. I decided to become a vegetarian, but when I first started, I was like, I can't do that. And then I decided, actually, I think I can. And I started trying out the foods and tasting it and be like, actually, this is not too bad. I tried to ask my wife to change with me, and she's like, nope, I'm a meat eater. I eat meat. And so it was funny because back then she was so stubborn, but this is an entrenched, this kind of like crossing your arms, I eat meat. This is who I am. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan. That is how we are in all areas of our lives. We just like, it is not who I am. And so we just entrench ourselves in our self-view. And that means actually it'll be really hard to change things. Even when we want to change, in that case, she didn't want to change, but even when we want to change, we still hold on to that old view of ourselves. It's really hard to change when we have that, but it's possible if we start to loosen our grip on that. Now, funnily, eventually I became vegan and so did she. We became vegan 7 years later. We both became vegetarian much sooner than that. And now, like, I don't see myself as a meat eater. Like, I just don't see meat or animal products as food anymore. It's like asking me to eat cardboard or human flesh. Like, nope, it's not how I see myself. And so it's not even a question at this point. So you can really change how you see yourself. You can really change. So how do we work with this? First of all, if you're struggling to make a change, ask yourself, what's the self-view that is making this really hard? How do I see myself that makes it hard to make this change? If you're trying to declutter and you're like, I can't let go of these things, that's a view. I can't do this is a view. I can't do this is a view. I can't. I don't, eat vegan food. I don't run. I don't go to the gym. That is a self-view. That's not who I am, or this is just who I am. I can't change that about myself. These are the ways that we put it in our head. We don't realize we're doing that, but we do. So ask yourself, what do you tell yourself that makes it like that's the view that you need to have? Or maybe you tell yourself something and there's a view underneath that. Like, I was like, this, quitting smoking, right? I was like, this sucks. Like, I'm making myself suffer. I shouldn't make myself suffer. Life is too short. That was what I was telling myself to excuse going for the cigarette. But what underneath that was that stress is suffering and that I can't deal with it and it's too much for me. That's the self-view that made me want to reach for the cigarette. And actually, it wasn't true. Like, stress is not suffering, stress is just stress. And it's something I can deal with, and I actually have the resilience and strength to do it. Okay, so start to look at the self-view and then start to ask yourself, how could I change that view of myself in such a way that the changes that I want to make would be a lot almost inevitable, right? If I think, yes, I can deal with that stress, or yes, going to the gym, is a part of who I am. Taking care of myself is a part of who I am. Maybe you view yourself instead as an athlete. Like, maybe you didn't before, but now you're like, I am an athlete. I fuel myself with healthy food like an athlete does. I work out every day like an athlete does, or whatever it is. So if you shift how you see yourself, you will start to show up differently. I am a warrior. I am creative. I am an artist. These are statements of who you are that maybe you haven't believed until now. And then start to prove it through action. If you're an artist, if you're a warrior, if you're an athlete, if you're a vegan, how would you show up? What actions would you take? How would it feel? And then start to do those in just little bits. You don't have to prove it 100%. Could you prove 1% to yourself? And then start to take those actions, see yourself in that way, and then actually prove it. And when you do, your self-view will start to shift a little bit at a time. It might take weeks or even months, sometimes years, but that self-view can definitely change. And you can do it a little bit faster if you do it intentionally. Okay, that's what I've got for you. That's the secret sauce. Don't tell anybody. And with that, I'm going to sign off, but I really love it if you could give this a thumbs up if you like this video or found it useful. It helps others to find the video as well in the algorithm. Subscribe if you'd like to get more of this. I try and produce a video every week, so you'll get the notification. And then, leave a comment. Let me know if you found something helpful here, if you have questions, if you made a shift that was really powerful for you. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, my friends, share this video too with others who could use some Zen habits in their lives. And I just want to say thank you for being here.